I like seeing what's going on all over. So I'm excited to see what people are working on.
Welcome to Project Show and Tell. This is the 6th Show and Tell for the virtual edition that started in October of 2020. It's basically inspired by what we did in person, either as a separate event or initially even just as part of a regular meeting. I wanted to continue because last month when I talked about loom knitting, I was saying how I would combine the variegated or the multicolored yarn with solids. And I had already done, I did a white piece. These are leg warmers, but it's like the pattern that it's doing too. And I had done blue, so it's blue like this. And then I'd wanted to do pink. So that one I finished. So these all have, it's the same multicolor yarn. The embroideries that I've done so far are they're usually based on a picture. So I had a photograph and I traced it, and then I also colored it. And what I wanted to do with this one in particular is I want to do multimedia. So instead of using all embroidery, I want to be able to like paint or color with it on the side. So this is the goal. And then I have a template. So that's as much as has filled in. You can see.
I had been 3D printing a lot. That's kind of the thing that I do. I've been doing like little drink coasters like this, and with different patterns on them and stuff. And what I've been doing, because I've been 3D printing this stuff, is you'll notice that there's a colorful side to the coaster, and then there's just like a white blank side to the coaster. And that's because the white filament is inexpensive, and I didn't want to waste my colorful filament for the entire thickness of what the coaster should be. If there's two different substances and they're joined together, one of them might pull more. So all my coasters ended up kind of being warped up like in a cup, so they're not flat. So what I wanted to do was print color on the back so that it would be sandwiched, so that there would be equal tension over time, so that the coasters wouldn't start warping. This colorful side is printed on the bed, and so since it's printing on the glass, I can do color changes and I can get a lot of variation and get a lot of different, fancy stuff going on. But on the back side of it, which is up in the air, I can't do this fancy, intricate color changing. I needed to figure out a single color pattern that I could print on there. So I started playing around with this pattern called the Hilbert curve. And this is an example of a Hilbert curve where it's just a single line folded into space, and you can make tighter and tighter patterns.
A weird sort of satirical art piece that I was making, and I'm trying to use ZBrush to make it into not quite a toy, but like a small scale, like a desktop figure or something. So it's basically a play on Disney owning every property. So it's absorbed the alien from Aliens, Groot, Captain America, Donald Duck, etc., etc. So basically, you can use ZBrush to create a really quick armature using these things called Z-spheres. So you could take a single sphere and then have that sphere repeat itself over and over and over again, and then drag those out and make like a posable armature. So I've been playing around with trying to make different poses for this, because the sketch is just something I made like on a bar napkin or something. So I'm just trying like different poses with it, like one of the top right is like, I don't know, lightsaber, Wolverine claws. The other ones are like, have a seat. And then like the one at the bottom right is kind of like this sort of dancing boy, oh boy, sort of happy Mickey. This whole thing's going to be weird, trying to like balance out cute and John Carpenter creepy and all the little things involved in that. So
A little bit of backstory. We got my family, we bought a vintage camper over the summer. And so we're in the process of, it doesn't really need a whole lot of work. So we're kind of more theming it than anything. And I don't know if most of you or any of you are familiar with the Fallout game series. And so it's kind of a post-apocalyptic type of thing. But rather than, showing everything in ruin, just kind of that, I also explain to people as, the theming that we're going for is, if you've ever been to Disney's Tomorrowland, it's the 50s version of what the future is going to look like. So a lot of aluminum and that kind of Art Deco-ish look is kind of the thing. But so, as we go along, we pick up things that kind of have that kind of look to it. So with that in mind, I try to design this thing as part of a decoration to go with the camper. And most of it's 3D printed. And I thought it was going to be a relatively easy project. So there's quite a few of these types of designs in Thingiverse to make these types of rocket-based planner type of stuff. And I thought, well, I'll put a little fence around it to give it maybe some kind of perspective of being rockets. And there's the logo for Vault-Tec, which is in the Fallout world, on a board here. So it's about 20 some inches by about 9 inches in general. My idea for this was originally to take this, and I have some scrap aluminum sheet to kind of wrap that board with it and then do something with it. And then I realized that while I can cut aluminum and start to work it, it tends to cut me more than I cut it. There's a lot more work than what I want to put into it. And I thought, I got this particle board here, and I don't know if it's focusing in too well, but the particle board has that rough kind of look to it. But I thought if I put a nice green shiny paint to it, almost like an AstroTurf, So I thought, what more appropriate for a future look thing than this, Brady Bunch backyard AstroTurf with the with kind of the missile bases here. And the fencing here is actually something I found at Thingiverse, which is supposed to be a Star Wars fencing, which I thought a nice little futuristic kind of design to it. And I kind of thought the hardest thing about this was going to be maybe figuring out what to do as a base. Turns out the hardest thing to do with this was gluing these pieces together.
I've been seeing like a lot of resin river tables, like really big ones, really impressive ones, like on YouTube. They always show up in my YouTube ads. It's like, okay, and after like dithering about it for a long time and having some wood to spare, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy some resin and do this. So I took like a walnut board that I had lying around and cut a section out of it, basically just by drawing a squiggly line and cutting the board in half. And we could do sanding it up so it's nice and smooth. Then I mixed together some resin in combination with some sort of powdered metallic pigments and some dyes to get this kind of blood color. This actually ended up being a two-sided thing because I tried this twice because I didn't know if it was going to work the first time. Rather, I did it in 2 pours, and the first pour ended up being the one you're looking at there, and the second one, which I thought was the good one, was the one that actually didn't work. So it's like sort of like a starburst consistency on the other side of the board with different stuff etched into it. So, but this was a successful side.
I'm working on my thesis show now, which is going to comprise of 5 pinball machines and then some other kind of associated paraphernalia to go along with that. So this last week here, I got the final 2 machines that I'm going to be putting together cut out and the cabinets glued together. So the 2 things we're looking at here that are the new ones is the one that's further in the back is going to be a machine that's based on the myth of Sisyphus. And it's actually based on a somewhat obscure game from the 80s called Ice Cold Beer, which I have a video here. But what it is it's mostly a vertical playfield where there's this bar that you can raise and lower either side independently. And then in this game, the playfield is all these separate holes, and you're trying to guide the ball to the hole that's lit up, and you score points in it that way. But in the version that I'm doing, the there's going to be, the play field is going to be a little more complex, but the only goal is going to be getting to the top. And once you do, the ball rolls over to the other side because it's a two-sided machine, and you'll run over to the other side and, do that as many times as you want, kind of corresponding to Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain only for it to fall down every time. And then the other one that you can see is, it's a little hard to tell from this picture, but it actually tilts backward, like down away from you instead of up away from you. And so it's going to actually be played backwards. So the flippers are going to be at the very back away from you. And so the ball is going to come up towards you when you're hitting it. And that's you can see a little bit also that it has some wood trim. It's based on machines from about the 50s and 60s called wood rail pinball machines, where instead of metal trim, they had lots of wooden parts. And those were all parts I made at the makerspace over the winter while I was back in Michigan. One of the things I'm working on is I'm having custom blacklight carpeting produced for my show. This is the correct colors, and the scale is a little hard to tell, but what it's going to be is each of these kind of, sections in here is going to be about 1 foot by 1 foot. So that's what I've been working on this week, is getting this design, tiling correctly and getting it all honed in.
At the Lakeshore Fab Lab, which I run out in Muskegon, it's a makerspace basically with the Muskegon Community College. My one guy that works part-time with me, and his name's Daniel Snow, and he's just a retired engineer, super clever inventor type. He came up with this laser cut hinge idea just out of the blue. Uses piano wire to kind of hold it in place. And, people have seen living hinges, and, I've never, like, when he said he made a hinge design, I was like, what? How can you laser cut that? And then he brought it in. I was like, dude, that's actually a really good idea. So he wants to incorporate it into some of our mobile desk project that we were working on. Actually, I'll just show a quick video of that. We had some teachers approach us, and they had this they had a problem where they would do classes outside, and they needed to bring desks and whatnot. Even the teacher might just need a desk outside, or people at home nowadays, their kitchen tables became their classrooms. So we had some downtime being closed and came up with this. All right, so this is a video that I did showing off it's a CNC routed desk. So it can be folded, it's very cheap to make, just really 1/2-inch plywood, folds up into 2 pieces that attach, so you could put it hanging on a closet. This is part of the Fab Lab. This is Daniel Snow. He's the guy that came up with the hinge idea. Just a quick time lapse of him putting it together. This video is only like 1 minute long, so it's not much longer. We're gonna take some. We're gonna put it on our new website when our new website's live. Take some orders if anybody wants it. If no one wants it, fine. It's just a cool project we did. Boom. So yeah, just kind of a neat project.
As a hobby, I make boxes. I do boxes for tarot cards. All right. And there's a couple of things I've done. I'm still working on it. I'm working on here back here. They're basically clamshell boxes made to look like books, because I got so tired of watching people who are deeply into using their tarot cards, but they're easy using the same original box that is held together by tape and rubber bands, or any number of things. I said, you don't have anything proper to store your stuff, do you? And it just occurred to me the standard clamshell box that they would use would work perfect for this. So this is something that I've been working on for a while. This is a slightly smaller one, but this is more designed as a box. This was kind of like a prototypey thing. for cards. I collect them, you know, and I just hate leaving them in the box. I want to be able to reach them when I want to look at them. And I'm trying to get to the stage where I can get these, because I'm still working on what I want to do with these, you know. But bear in mind, they're still kind of prototyping. I'm working with a woman in Oregon, actually. She's a seamstress. And the reason I do that is because I want something, you know, like if you, let's see. I mean, this works just fine, okay? But I need something to hold the cards in so that they don't, like if you crack the box open, they don't fall, you know? And because I know, you know, making these nice designs like this, they don't always accommodate. You don't know which way to open the box. I have to work on the latch. And the thing I'm talking about her, she's a seamstress. So I said, I want a silk cloth that can wrap around here and clamp, either with a button or anything else. And that basically holds the cards in so that they don't hit the floor if you open it the wrong way. So I use standard book board. This is all standard bookmaking stuff. You know, the paper, the book cover and everything. And this is pretty solid. I've actually wrapped a rubber band and whipped it at the wall. And it's just fine.
I've been working on a Raspberry Pi project, actually. All right, basically your average Pi with some sensors hanging off it. And I've been working on a weather station, which is sort of reinventing the wheel, but I guess it's a project that's well documented and there's lots of resources. So a good learning experience, I guess. Everybody see the Pi, I guess, the pictures. Sweet. And here it is, login. What I did differently with it was I created a database for it to log into, and I actually made it so that I could take several different Pis and have them all log into the same database over the network at some point. So there it is. That's my, been using Python to do this. That's my Python output there. And then there's a screenshot of the database using my SQL. And then so you can graph out the data and whatnot. But I have it set up to actually send the data to a website called Firebase, which is an online database. And then currently I'm working on learning Swift to program a phone app so I can get it on my phone. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've been working on.
Actually, doing metal casting right now. What I'm doing with this is melting these larger aluminum ingots down and resizing them into these small muffin tin type ingots that you see here in the background. That way I can process them later. This was an attempt to do a sand casting for that project that I'd mentioned before that I 3D printed, but the openings in this particular print are a little too tight for the sand to be left behind. So I need a slightly different process, and I'm working on getting the plaster to try to do that so that I can hold the form for the metal to go into without shifting all the sand around. Here's one of the larger ingots. This was looking down through. That's actually one of the larger ingots as it's melting. And here's some of the small muffins of aluminum. And there's one with it fully melted. Forge heats the metal up. When I initially put it in, it cools it down to about 500 degrees, and then in about 10 minutes, it reaches about 1700. And just shy of that, you watch the aluminum ingot just sink right down into the crucible, turn into liquid. It's kind of a neat process to watch, but the hazards of it do not escape me.